Do you want to stay more focused on the right goals in your life, or even just figure out what the right goals are for you? Do you want clarity? Do you want better work-life balance? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Success Through Failure.
Welcome to the Success Through Failure podcast, the show that reveals failure as your path to success. You'll listen to intriguing interviews with some of the most successful people on the planet and learn how their failures became a launchpad for success and how yours can too. Here's your host, former Division I All-American wrestler, former Division I head coach, speaker, and personal coach, Jim Harshaw.
Welcome to another episode of Success Through Failure. Today, I bring you Scott Alan Turner. I've had tons of amazing guests on this show, well over 100 now, billionaires, astronauts, professional athletes, world-renowned entrepreneurs, and they've shared their insider secrets for success. They've offered everything from top book recommendations to success hacks to action items that you can use today to see results immediately. If you're like me, you love this kind of stuff. And if you're like me, you want to get the Cliff Notes, or I guess these days they call them the Spark Notes. Well, you can get access to the action plans from your favorite guests, like Spartan Race founder Joe DeSena from episode 27, or Navy SEAL Mark Devine from episode 45, or maybe fitness guru Tony Horton from episode 85, plus other amazing tips and tactics to help you get clear on how to get from where you're at to where you want to be. I put all this in one place because you're busy and you want to get what you need quickly so you can move on with your day. Here's what I want you to do. Go to jimharshawjr.com/action to get instant access to everything I just talked about. That's jimharshawjr.com/action. And if you're listening to this on iTunes, there are 3 dots on your screen. Just touch the 3 dots, select View Full Description. There you'll see the link to download all of the incredible resources and action plans that I just mentioned. Now for today's guest. Scott went from being a, quote, money moron at age 22 to a self-made millionaire 13 years later. He's an early retiree and has been debt-free since 2009. Scott now spends his time helping others become financial rock stars through his best-selling book, his talk radio show, and his podcast. He's been quoted on Forbes.com, Business Insider, Money Magazine, CNBC, and U.S. News and World Report. He's been married to his lovely wife, Katie, for 11 years and has twin 3-year-olds. And in his free time, he spends his free time playing rock guitar in a rock and roll band. As usual, if you don't have time to listen to the entire episode, or if you hear something you like, but you don't have time to write it down, make sure you grab your copy of the free action plan PDF with all the quotes, tips, tactics, links, etc. that you're going to hear in this episode. Just go to jimharshawjr.com/action. That's jimharshawjr.com/action. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I'm glad you can make it. Let's start with this. Personal finance it's a big topic. It's a stressful topic. It's something that a lot of people just kind of push off and don't want to think about. But it's also the only thing we think about. One of the biggest things that we think about is our money and our bank account and our job and how much money we're making or how much money we're not making or how much money we're saving or retirement and college savings, et cetera, et cetera. So before we get into that, Scott, tell us a little bit about your background. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And how'd you get from there to where you're at now?
Sure thing. I grew up in a small town in western Massachusetts. From there, I moved down to Georgia. Culture shock. I went to school in South Georgia, which is even more of a culture shock. Got an IT degree. After graduation, moved up to Atlanta. Lived there for about 10 years. That's where I met my lovely wife. And during that time, started a couple businesses, ended up working from home, which allowed both myself and my wife, we moved back to Texas, where she is from. That's where we reside now. And so I've had about 8 companies over the past 17 years, I want to say. We were able to sell one of those a few years ago. It kind of set us up. During that time, as you said in the intro, I was the money moron coming out of college. Didn't know anything about interest rates, getting car loans, insurance. I didn't get any of that education growing up. Certainly didn't get it from school because they don't teach it. So I got into some consumer debt with credit cards, too much car, too much house. I had student loans. And then mid-20s, I ended up turning my life around, figuring it out, thankfully. And that allowed me to get to where I am today. A great place where I'm able to educate others on what I wish I knew back then.
And so let's start with that. What are some of the things that you wish you knew back then that you know now? I mean, because you're right, because we don't learn that. There's no... I didn't know of any personal finance courses when I was in school. Didn't learn a whole lot of that from my parents. It's just something I didn't know much of, and like I said, it's something we think about so much. But I mean, what are some of the things that we should know, and how did you kind of come across them?
For me, I'll start with the big one that I tend to focus on in my life, and that's vehicles and new vehicles. And I kind of pick on people on this because I did that too. It's like, all right, I got out of college. I started my job about 6-9 months in. I'm like, all right, I've arrived. I deserve a new vehicle. I've been driving this beater with 85,000 mile on it. Let's head to the car lot and then let's buy something without knowing anything about financing, interest rates, insurance. By the time I got home and shopping for insurance, I had an insurance bill that was more than or at least equal to my car payment, which was insane. So that's one thing I didn't know about shopping around for insurance. And that's an easy win. I'm going to digress here for a second. People typically don't shop around the insurance every 6 or 12 months, and it's a quick win. You can spend 10 or 15 minutes online with an insurance agent, review your insurance, because if you haven't done that over the course of the years and forgot about it, you can get a lot of savings. $500, $1,000 a year just by shopping around. Getting back to the car, I've done the math. The first 2 new vehicles I had, if I just skipped them and gone from one used vehicle to another, not getting those cars in my early 20s, adding up the depreciation, the extra insurance, the interest payments, I'd have over $1 million extra at age 65 if I had not bought them.
Wow, $1 million.
Yes, and that's true of just about everyone as well. The average, at least here in America, average car is about $30,000, and the average car financing is $29,000, which was pretty much what I wasted on those first 2 new vehicles.
Wow.
So if anyone's thinking, I'm never going to be a millionaire, you can, and you would, but it's sitting out in the driveway, driving each day.
So buy used, right? Buy used and shop around your insurance. Was that the message?
Yeah, buy used and buy cash. Buy a junker is really what it comes down to. I had a really expensive Porsche was my second car because I was single, IT, decent salary, living on my own, $49,000 car, mid $30,000 car payment was what I financed. And I sold that car, bought a $6,500 truck for cash when I realized, this is not going to work out. I'm wiping out my savings and investing and hurting myself for the future. Had to make that sacrifice, but I was able to do that. And it was a life changer. It's a game changer. And it allowed me to experience a more fulfilling life, the one that I have today. All right, I work from home. I get to see my kids every day. I get to see my wife every day. I'm early retiree. I don't have to go to work. I don't have to report to a boss.
And you retired, was it in 2009? Is that right? After you guys sold the business?
I'd say 2014. We were 100% debt free in 2009.
Okay.
No debt of any kind. Mortgage paid off, and then kept working because I enjoyed it, and I still work today because I enjoy it. But I work because I want to, not because I have to. And
that's where we all want to get. I mean, you talk about early retirement. I mean, that rings a bell with all of us because we're all looking to retire, and unless you're in a job that you really love, but even then, it's like, I want to be able to do it on my own terms and not have to punch a clock or do it on somebody else's terms. So, I mean, what are some of the other low-hanging fruits that can get us from where we're at to retirement either sooner or can get us there so that we can get there and live more comfortably? I mean, what are some of the other low-hanging fruit? What are some of the other stupid decisions that the average person is probably making?
The low-hanging fruit, cars we talked about is number one. I'm not going to call it low-hanging, but housing certainly is a huge consumer of our income. If you can live in a smaller home, not have lifestyle creep, not have the mortgage creep up as your income increases, there are people who are getting out of college at age 21, 22. They're working 10 years, but they're socking away 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% of their income early on, and they're working 10 years, and then they're retiring. But they're able to do that because they don't have that lifestyle creep. If you're in a big home and you want to retire early, one thing to consider is downsizing the house. It's hard, and it's not something that everybody wants to do, but it's a matter of priorities. Do you want the big house? Do you want to work till age 55 or 60 or 65? Or do you want to work till age 40 and live in a smaller home? Other things, eating out is a huge consumer of our income. That's a matter of people do not track what they spend each month. It's not uncommon for someone or a family to spend $3,000 to $4,000 a year eating out, which if you're making the average income here in America, $54,000, that's a huge percent just going out the door as you head out the door to your favorite restaurant.
Sure. But what about when people say, well, but that's something we like to do. It's the experience. And maybe it is, right? I mean, maybe some people may just want that experience now and they're willing to sacrifice. But it sounds like just a trade-off because, if you go out to eat and you spend $50 today, that $50 today turns into a lot more invested over 10, 20, 30, 40 years, right?
Exactly. And it's not just the $50 because you've already paid taxes on that money. It's the $75 you had to make in order to get the $50 that's going out and spending on it. I like to point people at what I call value-based spending. And that's you got to analyze where the money is going and seeing if it's going towards the things that are important to you. I don't pick on people that go out and spend $5 every day at Starbucks. I love a good coffee once in a while as well. But if that's impacting your bigger goals of, I'd really love to go on a vacation somewhere in the next couple of years, which is going to cost X number of $1,000. Or, that idea of early retirement, that really sounds good to me. Or I hate my job and I hate my boss. I'd like to get out of it. Is that more important than this other thing here that you're spending money on, but you don't really know that you're spending money on it? Most people, they don't save any money. All the money is going out the door. Get to the end of the month, it's like, where'd my money go? I made a bunch of money. I don't have any money. And they've got no clue. The idea of just figuring out where's the money going, tracking it. How much are we spending on pizza each month? How much are we spending on clothes? Maybe saying, I don't really like clothes. I'm going to stop going to the mall every weekend if that's your thing. Or I'm not going to go out and spend $100 on golf every weekend because something is more important than that. But it's identifying where's the money going? Is that really where I want it to go?
I think something you just said there is maybe a key for most people is to really think about what is important here. What's really important to me, and identifying those things and identifying your goals, maybe your long-term goals, your medium-term and your long-term goals, and sacrifice a little bit on the pleasure of maybe having that Starbucks. You cut back on the Starbucks, or instead of getting Starbucks, you get McDonald's or you cut corners because those things add up and they allow you to do the things that you want to do down the road. And it just seems interesting to me to think about because, like you said, it takes $75 to earn that $50, and that $50 spent today is $50 that could otherwise turn into X amount of dollars. I forget I forget how fast your money typically doubles when invested, but I don't know if it's every 5 years or 10 years or something like that. Do you know that statistic?
Yeah, there's a formula. It's called the rule of 72. Trying to explain it out. You take I'm not going to be able to explain it, but if you Google the rule of 72, it says, all right, at a specific, you divide 72 by an interest rate, so call it 8%. Divide 72 by 8, it's 9, I want to say. Yeah. I went to government school. So your money will double every 9 years at an 8% interest rate. It'll double every 7.2 years at a 10% interest rate.
Yeah. Okay. So double every how many years you said?
If you're earning 10% interest, it would double 7.2 years. So you take the rule of 72.
Okay. Yeah.
72 divided by 10, 7.2 years.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So 7.2 years. That's, now you invest that over, X number of years. It's like that's doubling and tripling and quadrupling. And and that's powerful. It's a powerful thing to think about because we all sort of have these goals, these wishes, these wants, maybe these experiences that we want to do, whether it's a vacation or retirement or putting our kids through college and not having them come out riddled with debt. These are decisions that you have to make in order to get there. And I think it starts with trying to figure out what you want in the first place. So,
and that's exactly right, Jim. That's the question that a lot of people don't ask. And I was in the same situation as well. Getting out of school, you just float through life, take it day to day, living the paycheck to paycheck lifestyle, not paying attention to anything, spending money willy-nilly. That's normal. And then at some point in your life, you'll realize there's got to be a better way. I've got all this debt. It's hurting my family. It's hurting my capacity to do things that I really want to do. And some people, they get there at age 35. Some people get there at age 45. Some people don't even get there till age 65. And they realize, I still don't have anything. I'm going to be working until I'm dead. So the earlier you can ask that question, what is it I want? All right, I've identified that. That gives me a little bit of power. How am I going to get there and get that? That's the next question.
And so we talked about cars. We talked about housing. What about budgeting? I mean, that's something that, I'll be honest, Scott, I struggle with budgeting. My wife and I don't have a clear budget. But the way we do it is we do all of our saving in the beginning. So in the beginning of the month, we take all the money out that needs to go to our savings account, that needs to go to different loans that we have, and I have a bunch of different savings accounts set up for everything that we, a vacation savings account, a clothing savings account, just different savings account that we have just for different things that we need that we know we don't want to have to take out of our personal checking account. So we set that money aside a little bit at a time. I mean, that's kind of how we do the budgeting. But can you talk about budgeting a little bit, the importance and maybe any strategies or tactics for it?
Sure. And everyone hates budgeting. No one likes it. The good side of it is the freedom that it gives you. I came up with a new term the other day when we were talking about this on the show. I call it the hot and spicy spending plan. Call it whatever you want. What's going to make you excited about doing it? The budget gives you freedom to spend, and you have to pick one that works for you. You have to pick software that works for you or a plan. When I was younger, I did what's called the lazy man's budget, which kind of sounds like what you're doing. All right, we're going to save a certain percent, and then we're going to pay the bills, and then what's left over, all right, we're going to do whatever we want with that. It's 3 buckets right there. And that's very, okay. That's the lazy person's budget. It's really easy to do. Yeah. And as long as you can get everything paid, you've got extra money at the end of the month, you're good. And then you can get down at the granular level, which I used to do as well. All right, it's Monday. I spent $5.65 on Starbucks, and I'm going to track that in my spending plan. I've done that as well. And that works. So you've got to find something that works well for you as an individual and you as a family as well, if you're in a relationship. The cash budget I'll speak to is wonderful. And that's where, all right, we've started at the beginning of the month. We know we're going to have X dollars in income. Let's say we're going to take $6,000 home. We're going to spend X on the mortgage, and we're going to divide it all up. $500 for groceries. We're going to go to the ATM on the first of the month, pull that out. That's going to go into the cash envelope. Whenever we go out and buy groceries, it's going to come out, and we're going to spend it in cash.
Yeah, we do that sometimes,
Yeah. That way we're not going to run up credit card debt for groceries. We're not going to be paying the groceries for the next 2 years on our credit cards. It makes you a very conscientious spender when you do that, because cash hurts when you spend it. Unlike plastic. Plastic's easy to whip out. I'm an Amazon Prime crack addict, as is my wife. It's easy to get on there and just buy. And packages arrive, and it's like, oh, I don't even remember ordering this or why I ordered it. Packages around here sit unopened for weeks. Like, I don't remember what that was either.
It's so easy to spend. It's so easy. Like, now you're right. It's so easy to spend money. I was online today, and I had to pay for something, and it was like, and I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to deal with this thing I had to buy right now. I'm like, you know what? I can just pay by PayPal. Like, I don't even have to pull out my credit card, which is the whole way down in my pocket. Like, I'm not going to spend the time to go down in my pocket and pull this credit card out and read the numbers off and type them in, which is absurd. But I could just enter in my PayPal, log in, and boom, it's gone. Painless. And the money vanishes into thin air. I never even saw it. It becomes so easy to spend money. It's and they're trying to make it easier. I went to Disney recently with my kids, and somebody was telling me, and thank goodness we didn't get this, but you can get these wristbands where you just walk up to, I guess, the concession stands or something, and you scan it, and you can get food. and you can just scan it for these different things. You just scan your wristband and it just takes money magically off your credit card. Hopefully they never come up with that for the real world. Like once you leave the fake world of Disney, hopefully they never come up with that, because my goodness, you imagine how easy it would be to spend money doing that. I mean, any thoughts on online spending and how to like you said, Amazon Prime, it's like you can just get so addicted to spending. Any thoughts on that?
If you've got a spending plan in place, we've been budgeting for 12 years since we've been married. It keeps you in the bounds if you're updating your budget each week, so that you do have that freedom to spend. I love buying books, and when I hear a book recommendation, I'll hop on Amazon. I'll buy that book, buy it new or buy it used, and wait a couple of days to get it. And I've got so many books here that I have not read, which were recommended to me. So I know perfectly well what people are going through. Oh, buy. It's too easy to buy. But when you've got the spending plan, which mine says, all right, you can spend X number of dollars each month on whatever you want. It doesn't matter whether it's shoes, shorts, guitar equipment, or books. Keeping track of that. All right, I'm reaching the ceiling of what I'm allowed to spend. Can't order any more books. If you have the discipline to stay within that, then you can go order as many books as you want up until that ceiling.
Sure.
But you're right. Having those apps, it can lead to a lot of overspending, overconsumption, and it avoids what people need in their lives, which is delayed gratification, more spending to build up their retirement savings and for the bigger things in life rather than the quick fixes.
Yeah. And you mentioned books, so this would be a good time to ask you, you have any top recommended books on personal finance or maybe discipline or anything sort of related to this topic that you could recommend?
My favorite book for personal finance is called The Millionaire Next Door.
Yeah, great book.
Yes, and that book speaks on what do millionaires really look like? Because Hollywood and the media has this one perception: Rolex watches, fancy clothes, we're drinking Grey Goose and driving BMW 7 Series, whatever they're, 5 Series, really expensive cars. And the author went out and said, no, these guys they're small business owners. They live in modest homes, driving a couple-year-old cars. Very few of them lease cars. They have budgets, and they value experiences and families and not having fancy clothes. And so it's such a mindset to say, oh, this is really how you build wealth over here, not how it's portrayed over here. Spend, consumer-oriented society. So I love that book for the switch of the mindset on building wealth and what it really looks like.
Yeah, that's a great book. So Millionaire Next Door. For the listener, I will have that in the action plan. So jimharshawjr.com/action. Any other books that you can think about or recommend, whether it's a book or even other resources?
Yeah, I've got two, just because of who your audience is. Two of my
your
favorites.
Book, by the way. Let's hear about your book too.
Sure. I'm a musician, not a professional, amateur, but two of the books that greatly influenced me to help I play electric guitar, play at a higher level, which if you're looking to get at a higher level of business, relationships, athletics, whatever it is, there's two. One's called The Talent Code, and the other one is called Talent is Overrated. Both those authors, they went and did research on what are talented people? Where do they come from? Are they born? Are they really gifted? And they trace stories back to soccer players, athletes, Mozart, famous authors, chess players. And it's another one of these myth-busting books. It says, no, their talent comes from practice and mindset and their specific types of practice, not that they were born with this natural talent. And I thought that was a real eye-opener because it gives you hope. It's like you don't have to have a whole lot of talent. I didn't start playing guitar till a very, very late age and was able to achieve a lot of high-level skills because of specific practice, specific mindset, belief, and going through and following some of the stuff that's in these books. So I recommend those for anybody who's looking to achieve a high level of stuff and wants to break that myth that, you got to have talent. No, you don't. You just got to practice the right way.
Right. Yeah, I just finished The Talent Code recently, and I'm in the middle of reading Carol Dweck's book, Mindset. And it's interesting, talent is, and I've said for years that talent is overrated and talent is a dime a dozen, because it's really the belief that you can get better and then actually putting in the work to get better and how you practice. So those are great books.
Yeah, I have Mindset as well, and I read that much later than either of those. And as I was going through, I was like, oh yeah, a lot of this stuff is duplicated or at least referenced in both those other books.
Sure. And We're talking about resources right now. You have your own podcast and radio show. Talk about that.
Yeah, I host the Scott Alan Turner Show. It's a personal finance show. The majority of it is answering listener questions. So people will write in. They'll say, I've got 401k. I'm not sure what to do in my 401k. Or they might say, I got a question I was working on today. We make $37,000 take home. We've got $120,000 in debt. Well, we don't know what to do. So all across the spectrum, people that are in massive debt, people who have millions of dollars in wealth, just anything across the board, personal finance related, I answer those questions. And for your listeners, I've also got a special resource.
Yeah, please share.
They can get my best-selling book, 99-Minute Millionaire. The audio version of that book is free. I've recorded it. I gave it away for free because I want as many people to listen to it and get in their ears as possible. It teaches the very basics of investing based on academic research without trying to sell you any products.
Man, that's fantastic. How do they grab that?
That'll be at scottalanturner.com/STF.
Okay, excellent. So for the listener, you can either go directly there. If you don't remember that, you can just go to my website, jimharshawjr.com/action, get the action plan from this, and I'll have that link as well as links to the books that he recommended and everything else here. But we're not done. I usually end up talking about that stuff towards the end of the podcast, but we're just kind of jumping around here. I wanted to ask you, what's like the number one or top few most frequently asked questions that you cover on your podcast and you hear from people in your community?
Number one / number two is, how do I get started investing? No, just why I ended up writing the book on that particular topic. People who are just coming out of college, age 21, age 22, they might be just getting started off in their careers. They're wondering, what do I do? Where do I get into? And that book walks through that from, here's why you should invest. Here's the power of compound interest. Here's what you could end up with, all the way through. I challenged myself to write the book have someone go through it in 99 minutes or less, depending on your reading speed. The audiobook, obviously a little bit longer because it's me speaking it. But from the beginning of the book to the end of the book, you'll be an investor, which is kind of cool. If you've never invested, you'll understand it and not get, we'll say, taken advantage of by people who might be interested in taking your money from you.
Yeah, excellent. That's great. So I would imagine it's not just for the 21, 22-year-old, but the 30-year-old or the 40-year-old who doesn't really have knowledge of investing. Maybe they just never have gotten into that. So I recommend for the listener to check that out. So Scott, I ask all of my guests to tell me about a time where you failed. And maybe yours is around finance, maybe it's around entrepreneurship, maybe whatever it is. Is there a time when you failed and as a result you just kind of felt that hopelessness or that self-doubt that comes from failure? And tell us about that time and how you dealt with it.
Yeah, recently it was getting this business off the ground. It was about a couple years ago. And anytime you start a new business, you get into overwhelm, or anytime you start a new thing, basically. It's like, I don't know what I don't know. I've got all these different things to do. For me, getting into personal finance, I know I had a passion for it, but then I started going out and, all right, I've got to write articles. I've got to start a blog. Oh, I've got to be an author. I've got to be a speaker. I've got to have a show. I've got to do videos. I've got to be on social media. And it's just on and on and on. I've got to have a logo for my business. I got to have a tagline or whatever. And that can be something you get into when you're doing the budget for the first time as well, or learning an instrument or getting into athletics, whatever it happens to be. It's like, I got to do all this. And I've only got a finite amount of time, but I want to do it really, really quickly. So it was very depressing to me going through the 50 or 100 items on my checklist and sitting there in my room in the office. Like, I don't want to get out of this chair. I don't even know where to begin. And finally I was like, all right, can you just get up, head over to the computer, and let's just work on a logo for 10 minutes. Can you do that? Just 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Can you go do that? And I got up and started working on the logo. And from there, just having these little micro goals each day that I could accomplish, give me a little bit of momentum, knowing, all right, each of these little tiny pieces, they're going to add up. They're going to compound, grow the business over time. And you just got to keep at it and not give up and know that I can do this. Other people have done what I'm trying to do. Because nobody starts out as an expert. I always try to remind myself, you don't start out walking. You don't start out learning how to or knowing how to use a fork. I'm still teaching my kids how to use a fork. They're 3.5. It's like, all right, they're going to get this someday. You got to keep at it so they don't spill food all over the floor. And it's the same thing with business, personal life, relationships. It's piece by piece over time, and then you get to where you want to go.
Yeah, and that's, something I learned recently is something called the 5-minute rule. And sometimes when you get to that level of overwhelm, it's okay, let me just do something for let me just commit to 5 minutes of this. I'm actually using this right now on a big project I'm trying to work on. It's like, okay, I keep kicking this down the road. I'm like, just commit to 5 minutes, just 5 minutes of this. And then after 5 minutes, you can either change and do something else, or if you've got momentum, you can keep going. And that really helps. But so Scott, let's get something juicier. Another failure, something you've been in business, I think 8 times. You said 8 businesses you started. Maybe all of them were runaway successes, but maybe one of them was a failure. We look at a guy like you who you've retired early, you've retired young, you're financially independent. But has there been a financial struggle or a business failure in your past that there was something that was hard to deal with that you could share with us?
Yeah, the first company, this is a funny story. My wife and I started a company about 6 months after our marriage. She came to me. We both had cats at the time who had passed away. And she came to me and she said, I want to get 2 new cats. We lived in a 1,200 square foot townhouse. And she said, I want to get 2 new cats. And I've read online, you got to have 3 litter boxes for these things. But I don't want to do that because the house is too small. Let's train them to use the toilet, which is a real thing. So like, all right, you want the cats, you want to train them. Okay. Hey, wait a minute. Let's record this. We'll record the whole process and we'll make a DVD video out of a series. And then we can sell the training. And I started doing my research like, all right, there's 300 million cat owners out there. Who wouldn't want to buy this DVD? Because then you never have to scoop a litter box again.
Right.
Use the
Sounds
toilet.
good. It sounds like a great business.
Yes, that's the way the mind works. All right, 300 million people out there, big enough audience, $20 a pop. Oh, all right, we're bajillionaires. So
right.
We get the product done. We set up our website, got a few deals with some product catalogs. We were in that business for about a year, sold 1,000 DVDs. I was going to the post office every day on my scooter, dropping off packages. Like, this is taking way too much time. I think at the end of the year, we had made $5,000. And it took 9 months to do all the recording, editing, and get this business up and running. And sales were pathetic from that standpoint. I was like, nah, we're not going to do this anymore. So we shut that business down, and that allowed us to transition into our next business project, which was online training, much more profitable. As my financial planner said at the time, you didn't fail, you got an education, which we look back, all right, yeah, we learned a lot running that business, but it was a financial failure. We did learn a lot, and it makes a funny story.
Yeah, and it's interesting, when you look back at something like that, and then you probably took a lot of skills that you learned from that and built those into your next company, your training company, and what you're doing now with everything you're doing online now.
Yeah, we learned video editing skills, lighting, microphone techniques. So a lot of production side of doing different businesses. We learned that key takeaway from that whole business, we never want to ship a physical product. It's different now in that you have Amazon fulfillment. But at the time we were I was going to the post office every day on the back of my scooter and printing out postage labels. Very time consuming. We realized, we don't want to do this again.
Sure. And so can you leave us with an action item? So my listeners like to get some kind of action item they can walk away with. It's something they can do in the next 24 to 48 hours to really start them off towards their goal. And maybe that's financial independence. Maybe that's something along the lines of personal finance, but an action item that the listener can do in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, since we're talking about budgeting and personal finance, I encourage everyone who has never had a budget, don't start a budget. Just track your spending. You can start a Google spreadsheet, really easy, and just input credit card transactions, bank transactions each day. Just figure out where is your money going. You can have a notebook that you carry around in your pocket or purse with a pen and just write stuff down. You do that for 30 or 60 days and start figuring out where your money is going. So the action item, go get a notebook and a pen and stick it where you're going to have it all the time. You could use your smartphone. There's note-taking apps in there as well. But that action of tracking is going to get you on the path to, all right, I don't really want to spend this money over here that I was. It'll get you onto the path of financial independence.
Yeah, that's a great first step. I remember when I did that years ago and just really opened my eyes to where my money was going. I knew where a good fair bit of it was, but man, the percentage of allocations to different things just really opened my eyes, and it will really change how you spend your money and how you can become more financially independent or shrink that debt in your life or save money for the experiences that you want to have in your life. Scott, thanks so much for making time to come on the show. Remind us of your website and any other relevant links or places to find you, follow you, etc.
Sure. My website is Scott Allen Turner, ALAN, Turner.com, and /STF. We'll have those free resources up there.
Excellent. And for the listener, again, I'll have that link in the show notes. In the action plan, the PDF action plan, just go to jimharshawjr.com/action. Scott, thanks for making time to come on the show.
Thanks, Jim. I enjoyed it.
And for the listener, until next time, take the time to get clear on your goals and embrace failure as a stepping stone on your path to success.